It's your girl Charles, and welcome back to another episode of Mama Drama Podcast. Today, guys, we are joined by a very special guest. But before I do get into the episode, I would like to put a disclaimer out there. It is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. October is the month of domestic violence awareness. And this is going to be potentially a triggering episode for those who may have been victims or survivors of domestic violence. Okay, so if it is something that you don't know if you want to watch, potentially you should skip past this. And yeah, we'll be seeing you in the next episode. But yeah, I'm gonna hand over to Alicia, and then she will kind of do the special intro for our guest.
Okay, so today we've got a special guest. This is my colleague that I work with, and she's told me a lot about her life. And when Shells and I were talking about different episodes that we could do, I was like, I know someone who's very inspirational, and I feel like she can speak volumes for those who have been impacted by domestic abuse as a survivor of domestic abuse. And I couldn't think of a better person to be a spokeswoman of domestic abuse and the journey, yeah, because we're here today to hear the journey. As you can see, we've got mugs and everything. We're trying to be, all chilled, and it's really about her expressing herself and sharing her story with us. So I'm going to introduce Shabnam. So if you introduce yourself and who you are.
Hi guys, my name's Shabnam. I'm 43. I'm a mum of 3. I work with Alicia. I'm pretty much Superwoman. I do it all. I work full-time and a full-time mum and sole carer of my 3 children, and that's pretty much what I do.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your upbringing or background, etc.?
Yeah. So I grew up in Tottenham. My parents' heritage is Iranian. I grew up in a very strict household. I was never allowed to do anything because my mum's favourite line was Iranian girls don't do this. So I had quite a strict upbringing. I'm the youngest of 5 siblings. Yeah, it was a loving upbringing, so strict but very, very loving. One thing that was in abundance in my childhood and in my home was love, from not just mum, dad, but aunts, uncles, cousins. We all lived together at some point. We grew up together. I went to secondary school in... Where did I go? I went D&K in Hornsey, and it was an experience. I think if we talk about abuse, really, as young girls, we probably first experienced it in secondary school. Silly little things when a boy's trying to touch your boobie or grab your bum. You don't even think about it as a young girl. You just think, oh my God, he likes me. But actually it is abusive. So you grow up. I grew up at a time when gangs in Tottenham were prevalent. There was a lot going on in Tottenham during my teen years. And then I grew up, moved away. I lived abroad for a few years on my own.
Where did you move to?
Moved to Dubai.
Okay. Oh, lovely.
And I lived in Dubai for about 3 years on my own to find myself and figure out what I want to do with life, because I was a bit of a spoilt child, being the youngest of 5 siblings, and I kind of had no direction on what I wanted to do in life. Lived there for 3 years, come back, and I met my ex-husband, and we'll start the story there, shall we?
Let's proceed then.
Absolutely. I just got a quick question. Is your ex-husband the same culture as you?
So religion, as far as religion goes, yes, we're both Muslim, but no, he's half Scottish, half Pakistani.
Okay.
And I'll come to that point as to what my parents thought about that.
Yeah, be interested to hear that.
Yeah, I met my ex, and I suppose if I think about what I know now, and I know what love bombing is, and I understand abuse on a much, much, much deeper level, then 12, 13 years ago, I would have run a mile initially because the signs were just so there.
What were the signs?
The love bombing being the main one.
Sorry, how old was you at this time anyway?
26.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't young. I
Mhm.
thought I knew it, I thought I knew better. I'm wise. I was independent. I worked for a FTSE 100, one of the biggest accountancy firms in the world. I was living my best life, independent. I had my own money. Then I've met this guy. And the night I met him, I'll never forget, he stayed in my house for 4 days.
What?
4 days.
Say what?
Yeah, for 4 days.
Straight.
Where did you meet him? In a rave?
No, so this is why. So he used to go to school with me,
Okay.
but I never acknowledged him in school at all. He never crossed paths with me, but he knew me.
Mm-hmm.
He knew all the mandem that I grew up with. So I met him through my old friends. Basically, we've gone out on a night out. He came with the guys that I knew as part of their friendship group. They all come back to my house for an after party. He just never left for 4 days after that. So his friends left, but my man never left. But the time I didn't think anything of it, right? And that first night he stayed at my house, he gave me the whole spiel of, I've had such a hard upbringing, my mum, my dad. So it built up this, I felt sorry for him. Because I was like, oh, I had such an amazing childhood, that's so sad that you never experienced that. That would have been my downfall, because that thought process kept me in a horrible situation for years, because I just felt sorry for him. We'd got to the point where I was too involved with him. I'd developed feelings for him.
How long did it take you
to develop feelings for him? I'd say about 6-7 months, because he was just
there.
I
was gonna
say, no,
girl,
he was
God
just.
Damn, he didn't leave your house for 4 days after meeting in a rave.
He was just, but I didn't think anything of it because
Yeah.
we had familiar friends. This is what I mean. Like, I really didn't. Because would you let someone you just met in a rave come to your house and stay there? You wouldn't, would you? But where there was that familiarity with mutual friends, that I had that element of trust to let them into my house, I didn't really think about it. I didn't deep it the way I should have deeped it. Facts.
I love the lingo, guys. Go on.
So he was there. Then he goes to prison.
How long after?
This is like within 6 months, right? He goes to prison for some driving. Like, these are all little signs, by the way. Like, I feel like if you're with someone in your 20s and they're going to jail for driving, run. Like, what are they doing with their life?
Can I ask a question quickly? So was he road? When you met him, was he road?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now it's just a question because we talk about a lot about this.
No, yeah, it is because, gosh, yeah.
She's like, there's nothing I can say.
No, yeah, he was road. But
and
that was
like
the
that type of stuff,
I was going to say that was
younger.
an attractive element to me. That wasn't making me not want to be with him because I could see that he was road. That was making me want to be with him even more. I'm not going to lie. I was like, oh, what? I like that. Then he's gone to prison. I'm on a prison visit. I'm visiting him, and some girl with a big belly walks over to dash hot tea in my face and in his face, right? I'm like confused, like, what's going on? Like, I just come to visit you. This girl's pregnant with his child. Then he starts like, nah, she's dirty like that. Like, I don't even know if the youth's mine. You can't leave me, I'm in jail. All of that talk, right?
Do you believe him at this point?
His family jumped on that narrative as well, right? So I had his mum, his brother, no, you don't know this girl, like, you don't know what she's like.
How did she get a prison visit then?
So when you're in a Cat D jail, you don't need to be invited to go to see anyone. You can actually just turn up and book the visit without, you don't need VOs basically in a Cat D prison. I oh God, I'll never forget. She was lying on the floor, heartbroken, with her big belly. And I'm stepping over her. And I'm like, have some respect for yourself. And I'm just like leaving. And my narrative at that time was, you've got a baby on the way. You need to kind of sort that situation out. I'm good. Because it was so early days. But, you know, I got talked into, no, you don't know, stay. That's not my baby. We need a DNA, all of that stuff. I stayed. And it just got worse. I think the first time he put his hand on me was when I questioned why he'd stayed at the baby mother's house. So why are you staying there if there's nothing going on with you? Like, I'm so confused.
how long did he stay in jail for?
6 months.
Did
So
he
it's
do
just
a whole 6 months, yeah?
He'd done 6 months in prison and then he was out. He'd done a lot of short sentences like that whilst I was with him, in fairness. It was, I think the first 4 or 5 years, it was a continuous in and out, in and out. I come from a good family. I remember having to lie to my mum once and like, oh, he's gone to Pakistan to join the war. She's looking at me like, you know, like you've got to do like, and my mum's looking at me like, not the war, like, you know, military service.
Yeah.
So I was like, he's gone to Pakistan to do military service. And my mum's looking at me like, but I'm saying things with my chest, right? Because I was so in love with him, I didn't want anyone to have a dim view of him. But really, I think I should have been open and people could have probably helped me. Then he asks for my hand in marriage.
Wait, before you get to that point, you were saying the first time he put his hands on you was when you had a conversation with him about going to the mother
None of
of
my
his child.
business. He put his hands on me and he's like, it's none of your business. That's my baby mother, blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff.
So when you say put his hand on you, he slapped you?
Slapped me, punched me, that was his thing, right? He'd either slap me across my face, punch me in my nose or my ear. Like, I've got a ruptured eardrum from the amount of times I had slaps in my ear. But it continued, right? But he would only get violent if he drank and he would take Class A drugs. So he'd go out raving, do what he's doing. Whilst he was on a come down, he'd get violent, get abusive. And in my head, they were linked. So I didn't actually look at him as an abusive man. To me, I was playing a narrative in my head that he's actually a really nice person and he loves you. He's just gets violent when he drinks. So if he stops drinking, he might stop being violent. But actually, they're not even linked at all. His sister's visibly seen him put his hands on me in front of me. So his family were all very much privy to the level of abuse I was going through. And the abuse wasn't so bad. So, okay, I shouldn't say so bad. The abuse wasn't... So my physical injuries were never that bad for me to want to get police involved, if that makes sense. You know, that whole, you can't snitch on someone you're with, all that narrative when you grow up with, you know. So I would never get the police involved. But I always had bruises on me, whether it was a black eye, broken nose. And my family was starting to see these patterns. And I always had an excuse. Oh, I fell, dropped down the stairs. Oh, the kitten. I think the best one I ever told a professional was the kitten. I tripped over my kitten. And like, they're looking at me like, your injuries are not corroborated with what you're saying's happened. But I was saying it and sticking to it. Then we've got married Islamically.
How long after?
3 years after we'd been together. By which time I'm completely controlled by this man. So he'd separated me from my siblings. I weren't talking to my siblings anymore. I only spoke to my mum and dad. And I remember the day of our wedding, my mum sitting outside the mosque saying, you know, you don't have to do this. You know, you really don't have to do this. You don't match. Our families don't match. I was like, no, I love him. I love him. We're doing this. But I had to take him the next day after our wedding. I came home from work. He'd disappeared to Thailand with his friends, right? Because he could do whatever he wanted to do. I wasn't important in his life. And I think I know that now, whereas at the time, I just believed he loved me. We're married now. I'm your wife. Like, but obviously that wasn't the case. He's gone to Thailand, had his fun. I'm just trying to make you understand how the level of abuse this guy, like the way he played it. He comes back from Thailand early and he's like, "You've got to take me to sexual health clinic." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I can't tell you the madness that happened, yeah, but you've got to take me. I need to go now." So as a woman, you're like, why? Why? Why do I have to? But I've done it. I've picked him up and I've taken him and I've sat there with him. Now when I think about it, I think I actually had no respect for myself. I must have been so controlled and consumed by the abuse at this point where I was just doing as I'm told without even questioning why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Did he have anything?
I wouldn't know. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because he weren't sleeping with me. But I used to think this was normal because he used to use that thing of I ain't touching you, and it was always about me. No, I don't want to sleep with you. Look at you've put on weight. Look at the state of you. It was always on that level rather than him being at fault. Then I've fallen pregnant with my daughter that he didn't want. And that whole pregnancy, we lived at my mum's. He trashed my mum's house. He left my mum's house. I gave birth to my daughter and I didn't see him for a week after I'd given birth at all. The first time we hear about it is when police knock on my mum's door looking for him. My mum's like, "Why are police looking for your baby, your husband?" I'm like, "I don't know." And like the police have got loads of evidence. And I never forget the police like showing me pictures, asking me where he is, asking me to divulge where he is. And they're showing me these pictures of bare different girls in and out of hotels that he's been taken into hotels. And I'm like, no, I don't know where he is. I don't know. At the time, he was in his own flat in Finchley with his first baby mother playing Happy Families.
So he went back to her again.
Well, I don't know what them two are doing. Like I don't know what them two are doing, but whatever, right? But I still took him back. So the cheating was normal for me at this stage. He'd literally created this scenario where I can cheat on you whenever I want. You can't question me at all. Then we've moved into a new house. I'm getting blinds done. He comes home inebriated, making threats to kill. "I'm going to kill all of you. I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to kill the baby." The guy who's fitting the blinds calls the police. Police come, referrals go in. That's the first time children's services get involved. At that time, they're privy to information I'm not privy to. So they've got police checks, they've got probation checks. I'm not privy to any of this information. So they've come in at an angle of child and family assessment, and I'm completely minimizing everything. Like, I don't know what you lot are talking about. Like, abuse? No, it's really nice. Completely in this denial of I'm in an abusive relationship. For me, it was like, no, he's got his demons and he's struggling with his childhood. We need to help him. He's not abusive. That was my narrative, and I stuck to that for years. It's what I believed, by the way, completely. So children's services get involved. They make me do the Freedom Program. You heard of that?
Yep.
So they make me do the Freedom
You
Program.
want to explain to everyone what the Freedom Program is?
Freedom Program is a course that a lot of women, generally women, it could be men or women that do the course, that are victims of domestic abuse, do to understand abuse. personal opinion on that is it doesn't work, because they let you do the course while you're actively in an abusive relationship. For me, it put me at more risk, because I went to this course and I learned a lot. And then I'd come home and talk about it. You're abusive. My course has taught me you're abusive. I need to get away from you. Then the abuse escalated to another level. So there was always arguments in and out, the financial control. By this point, he'd fed me the narrative of, you don't need to work anymore. Just stay at home, raise our daughter. I'm going to pay for everything. So I wasn't working at all and totally reliant on him for absolutely anything. And he'd never leave any money. The only time he'd leave money is if we were on good terms. If we were great, if I kept my mouth shut, I'd get a nice designer bag, I'd get the money, we'd get the holidays. But if I was opening up and talking about anything with him or questioning him about anything he was doing, it was very much abusive response. So his general tone would be to shout at me, and his favorite thing to do was literally get angry and literally just grab my throat. At that time, when you've got someone doing that to you consistently, you're not really talking to them or voicing how you feel about things. So I'm changing. Like, we're 5-6 years into this marriage, I'm changing. I'm quiet, I'm withdrawn, and anyone that knows me, that's just not me. I'm loud, I'm friendly, sometimes friendly.
In portions.
In little small doses. But my personality had changed. I wasn't questioning anything. I was just tolerating everything. Then I have a hospital procedure one day. I ask him to babysit his daughter, because that's what I had to do, ask him to babysit his daughter, because he never felt any parental responsibility. He has his daughter after my hospital procedure, but what I didn't know is that he'd been on drugs for 2 nights before.
Oh, shit.
So he's come to the house. I've had a hospital procedure, and he's like, I'm going to bed. I'm like, I thought you were coming to help me. And then out of nowhere, he jumps out of bed. You're trying to kill me. You're trying to kill me. I'm like, then he's just going mad. And before I know it, he's punched me in my ribs and I can't breathe. Literally, I can't breathe. So I knock on my sister's door. At the time, my sister lives next door. So I've run out, knocked on her door, and I've just collapsed in front of her. The ambulance get called. We find out that I've got 2 broken ribs, and then I get sent home. Again, children's services referrals. But this time I'm scared, right? I'm like, oh, they told me not to go back. They told me he's abusive. And I'll always remember this social worker that came. She was really nice, because the one I had previous was just telling me I'm going to lose my kids if I don't listen to them. And that's a bee in my bonnet with children's services, because I think they always go in blaming the mum or the victim in that situation of, you're not doing enough to protect your kids, you're not doing enough to keep your kids safe, whereas you're not actually understanding that there's a trauma bond that's developed at this stage. So as much as I know that person's hurting me, that's also the only person I know to trust and love and is my safe space, even though I know he'll hurt me. So it's just a nasty little bond that you're playing, you're going round in this cycle. And I remember the social worker, she goes, you're not going to lose your kids, but you need to stay away and you need to show that you're going to look after your daughter and keep her safe. 2 weeks later, I'm back in hospital because I can't breathe, and they find out that I've actually got a pneumothorax that they'd missed 2 weeks before. So he'd actually nearly killed me. He should have been charged with attempted murder, but he coerced me to, get rid of my statement, not support police action. But I left at that point. I took my daughter and I left, and I moved far away for a year. And I felt like, yeah, I can do this. I've been away for a year now. Like, I'm all right. I'm gonna go get my divorce now. I'm strong enough. I'm gonna get my Islamic divorce now. I go to get my Islamic divorce, and for all the Muslims out there, getting your non-Muslims out there, sorry, to get your Islamic divorce as a woman is very hard. It's not something they want to give to you as a woman, whereas a man can verbally divorce you in a minute.
Divorce you 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas a woman doesn't have that same privilege. You have to go through a process of the Sharia Council of explaining why you want your divorce. So we go. I'm like, he beats me. He nearly killed me. He's abusive. I just want to go. He speaks to them. It's like, I've changed. I love her. I love her, and I love my daughter. I want my family back. So then they go to me, give him another chance. So at this time, I've got no family. I've only got my mum and my dad. My siblings ain't chatting to me at all. There's just no relationship there. Most of my friends are non-existent because either the girls were all hoes, or you can't chat to man, you can't have man friends. Like, that's not Islamic. And most of my childhood friends were actually boys. So I had actually no one at this point. I'm completely reliant on this man. I go back much, I really upset my dad actually by doing that. I go back, and what he forgot to omit in the Sharia Council was that he'd married another woman. And he actually had a whole nother wife whilst he was sitting in that room saying, I want my wife back, I want my wife back. So then I've gone back, I've very quickly fallen pregnant with my son, and then I find out about this other woman. So then the element of triangulation comes into play with his abuse, where he's pitting me against another woman. Literally. You're old. She's young. You're nice. You fulfill some of my needs, but I've got other needs. And you're just like, oh my God, I do everything for you. What do you mean you've got, like it's all about you. It was never him, the issue. It was like, I'm not good enough for him. I'm good enough in certain aspects, but not good enough in other aspects. And then it was just a nightmare. I gave birth to my son. My whole pregnancy with my son was awful. I look at him sometimes and I'm like, I'm so guilty, because he probably just heard shouting. I was on some gangster mode, like wanting to slash tires and fight girls when I'm 9 months pregnant. And for what? For a man that beats me. But that's just how abuse works. Unfortunately, you're so connected to your abuser. It's unbelievable. At this point, he got me where he wanted. I'd given up my house. I'd moved into some shabby little flat in Enfield. I moved back out with my daughter before I gave birth to my son. And he'd moved that other woman in that same night. So she was sleeping on my furniture, my bed, my mattress, my sofa. Like, it was all my furniture in that house. Idiot.
I don't even know what to say at this point. Yeah. You see why I say men? Just keep on going, Shabs.
So we're there, pregnant with another baby. I'm calling this girl, by the way.
So wait, baby number 3 or baby number 2? Number 2.
I've called this girl. I'm like, he's not going to leave me for you. Facts. In fact, he doesn't even want you. You're a halal hoe. I remember using those exact words, right? Like, you're not.
That's very funny.
No, because it's like he's not treating you like a wife.
Yeah.
Like, really, if you're his wife, he should maintain a home for you. Like,
You're living in my yard.
You're living in my yard on my furniture. You're a halal hoe. Like, that's actually the only way to describe you.
Yeah.
And I think it's more for him, because he was so into, I'm a good Muslim, to kind of justify his, bad behavior, shall we say. He was justifying it by marrying So actually, I'm not committing a sin. I'm married. That's my wife, rather than I'm cheating on my wife. And I've got a little side piece, because that's how he treated her, like a side piece. She goes, no, I ain't going nowhere. I'm happy to be a second wife. All right then. Okay then. I mean, I laugh about it now, but actually, when I think back to what he done to me, it was mad. It was mad, because I'm fighting now for a man that beats me. But this is where he's got me, where I feel devalued. I feel like I can't cope without him. Bear in mind, I'm the same woman that moved to Dubai for 3 years, not knowing no one, not having a job. I just got on a flight and I was like, I'm going to do something. And I done it. For 3 years, I worked. So I knew I've got the ability to do stuff, but I just didn't have the belief that I can do anything. So then I gave birth to my son. He goes jail again. And, oh, this one's funny. The day he goes to jail, his older sister and the side piece, the halal ho one, are walking behind me. Like, I'm about 9 months pregnant. They're walking behind me. I'm like talking to my friend. I'm like, I'm going to beat her up. I'm going to beat her up. Like, why are they walking behind me like that for? Like, it's kind of like intimidation, right? Like, why you waited 10 minutes for me to come out to walk behind me? Like, you lot are actually not okay. But I was still fighting indirectly with I'm better than you, because he asked me to come to court. You stood outside. You weren't allowed in. He didn't want you there. So it was always like still a game, right? I've got the upper hand. He wants me. He doesn't want you. Whereas actually he didn't really want both of us. He was just playing a sick game. I have the baby. My son's birth was traumatizing in itself. We're in hospital for 2 weeks. I finally get my own place. I was homeless, by the way. The day I gave birth to my son, I was actually homeless, because I thought we're moving in together. I had nowhere to live. And it was, it's a scary feeling as a parent, like you guys have all got kids. Imagine giving birth and sitting in recovery and thinking, yo, we've got nowhere to come home to.
Scary.
Where are we going?
Where we actually going,
Like my mum, she was there, but my siblings still weren't talking to me. And they weren't going to talk to me unless I'd left this man, but I was not leaving him. I was like, no, I choose him over you guys. He's my husband. And he was very smart about it, because he'd go in at the angle of, they're not Muslim, Your family, them aren't Muslim. So that's why they don't like me, because I'm a good Muslim and I want you to be a good Muslim. But they're not Muslim. We were born Muslim, right? So it's whether I come from a family that you can choose whatever religion you want to follow. I've, my sister-in-law's Greek. I've got an Irish sister-in-law. Got people from Eritrea in my family. It's so diverse in my family. So I couldn't quite grasp why he's going down the angle, but I believed it with my chest. Like, yeah, you lot are all don't want what's good for me. You lot don't believe in Allah, so I can't take you lot. I can't respect you lot. Which is actually the opposite of what Islam actually teaches you. Then he comes out of prison.
How long after?
8 months. Does about 8 months. He comes out. I've got my own house now. I've set it up. He's like, I want to come back. What do you think I done?
You let him back.
Yes.
I didn't want to say it.
Let him back. By this time, I've got my own house. I've decorated it. I've done everything on my own. He comes back. Bear in mind, I've got a little girl who's growing up at this time. So at this time, she's about 6. She's witnessing all of this. He comes back. But I don't trust him. Like, my soul doesn't trust him. And as a woman, when you get these feelings of, I'm going to check his phone. I'm going to check his phone. And 9 times out of 10, you'll check that phone and you'll find something that you don't want to find out, right? I'm checking man's phone and I'm seeing things I don't need to be reading or seeing
Other
at
women
all.
again.
not just her, loads of other women. Like, but I'm just like, where'd you get time? Like, Ruba, go get a
Pal.
job. We've got 2 kids now. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, I kicked him out. By this time, by the way, I didn't know I was pregnant with my third at this time. I didn't know I was pregnant with my third until she was 6 months pregnant.
Okay.
I thought I had backache.
Oh no.
I laughed.
It went in denial. You weren't in denial.
No, I weren't in denial. I thought I had backache. I had no stomach. I had regular periods. I just had severe backache, and I was pushing to get an MRI. So I've gone for an MRI, and they're like, something's moving. So they stopped the
No.
MRI. So then I'm 6 months pregnant. I'm like, oh. My dad's in hospital by this time. He's severely ill. My mum's telling me, get rid of the baby. And I'm beefing with her like, I'm a grown-ass woman. What do you mean, get rid of the baby? I'm 6 months pregnant. No. But there was a reason why I needed to have my baby, my third baby. She's something that gave me strength to put an end to this in a weird way. Even though it's hard with 3 kids, but there's logic. I feel like there's some sort of wisdom for me to have fallen pregnant with her. Because then I give birth to her. I kick him out, by the way. At that time, I've kicked him out.
Again. So
Yeah, I've kicked him out bare times. That was my go-to. It's my house, get out. Right? That was the only thing I had control on, by the way. That was actually the only thing that was mine and I could control. But he'd leave, but he wouldn't give me my house keys. He'd be like, yeah, I'll go. But I'm keeping my keys. So then I give birth to my daughter and I'm in the recovery room. And he calls his mum, thinking she wants to congratulate me. She's like, oh, isn't it nice? You had your baby on the 23rd. The halal ho had her son on the 23rd the month before. So now I'm finding out he's now got a baby because his whole narrative with me was, no, I don't care about her. Me and you, what me and you have got. We've got kids. We're a unit. That's how he kept me there, right? The whole time he told me he'd divorced her. That's how I stayed. Then I find out he's not divorced. He's got a baby. So I come home. After 24 hours, by the way, this hospital was shocking. After a C-section, they sent me home and told me to buy my own medication, pain medication. It was awful.
What a cheek.
Right? So I'm like, God, I've come home and I'm like,
and you got 2
I've
kids
got a
as
newborn. I've got my son he's 18 months at this time. And I've got my oldest daughter. He leaves me to go link his side chick.
So not the halal ho?
No, well, her side chick, halal ho. Either way, either her or someone else. But he had about 3 on the go at this time, right? Some French thing he was married to as well. He was just marrying women like left, right, and centre. This guy is shocking.
All Islamically.
All Islamically, right? I knew when I was in recovery room that I'm not going back to him, but I just didn't know how I was going to get away. I really had no idea how I was going to get away because I was like, 3 kids. How am I going to work? He's already told me, and the narrative with him was, you're nearly 40, you're overweight. Who's going to love you now? Who's going to want you now? They're going to treat you like they're going to use and abuse you. Then my kids are going to be affected. Who's going to give you a job? All of this stuff was just going through my head. Come home. Then my dad gets severely ill. The icing on the cake for me to know I'm never going back to him, by the way, is when my dad died. And it was during COVID. You couldn't bury your dead at that time. You could have 6 people. My dad, being a Muslim, needed an Islamic funeral. But as a woman, you can't pray behind the dead. So I couldn't be one of the people there to give my dad his burial that he deserved, right? So I'm begging this man now, right? Oh my God, my dad's died. I need you to make sure that you can do this for my dad because he needs to be buried. He causes a big argument the night before my dad's funeral and disappears. Where his conduct of behaviour has always been, I'm going to go out, not come home, not answer your calls. I'm begging him now, like, I'm like, my dad's being buried tomorrow. What are you doing? What are you doing? But he liked to have this upper hand of, you need me more than I need you. So beg. So I had to beg, right? For him to turn up to my dad's funeral. And then the night we buried my dad, I get a phone call from the halal ho laughing. Oh, your dad's dead. Ha ha ha. Like all of that stuff, right? I'm like, how would she know unless you're chat? So all these things were coming to light. This I was like, actually, you're chatting my business now to her. So we're not so sacred. Who am I? And what am I tolerating? And I always say I didn't leave because of the abuse. I left because he cheated and had another baby and another family. So had he not done that, I'd still be in that situation. So thanks for marrying him because I'm good. But I'd still be there because the abuse, I was so conditioned to the abuse that it was normal for me. But here we are. And then I moved. And the day I interviewed for this job, when you interviewed me, I had nothing in my house. It was so ridiculous. I had boxes everywhere. We'd literally just moved. And when something's meant to be, my eyes just come across this random job. And I was like, oh, that sounds a bit of me. Oh, that sounds all right. I could do this. So I was like, I'll apply anyway. I don't think I'll get it, but I'll apply. And I had no knowledge of how COVID ways of working. So I didn't realize people were working from home. I just knew I'm going to interview and get my confidence back up to see that I can get a job. So I remember saying to you in that interview, like, yeah, I can come to the office for an hour a day, then I've got to go pick up my baby, then I'll work from home. And even saying it out loud, I was like, she's not going to give me the job. You sound like you're going to be at home most of the day. And then she gave me the job. So it was like the catalyst of, actually, you don't need to go back for me. But I still let him see his kids initially. He coerced my daughter to divulge where we were moving to, which wasn't part of our plan. He was seeing his kids initially, and then it was becoming sporadic. He wanted to see them whenever he wanted, all of that stuff. So I just stopped. You'd think the abuse ended there, right? Well, the physical stuff did. So physically, he can't touch me. He can't. I don't acknowledge him. I don't talk to him. I haven't talked to him for nearly 2.5 years. I refuse to have any contact with him. But then the harassment and stalking started, where he was making me feel like I was going mad. Even though I'm not with you, the abuse is still so prevalent where I've got nowhere to run from you or get away from you, or every time I think everything's calm, then you just pop up and be like, hey, I'm still there. Don't forget that I'm still there. And here we are now, where he doesn't see his kids. I'm fighting for him to never see his kids because I believe that he will subject my kids to more emotional abuse and coercive abuse, facts. And it's not about their kids. Generally, abusive men, they don't really care. The kids are a commodity. So they'll use the kids to hurt you, the obsessions with the woman, or the other way if it was another party. But for me, his obsession was with me, not my children, not our children at all. So now I'm in and out of court trying to fight the family system that is so hard because they're against. For some reason, family court make it easier for abusive men to abuse women through the judiciary system. And it continues and continues. And I've spoke to a lot of women, judges give access. So as much as social workers will be like, no access, no, you can't let that person see your kids. Actually, they've got no legal standing when it comes to contact, right? So you guys can say all of that. and the mum will stick to what you like, what children's services are saying, no, I'm not letting you see the kids. I'm being proactive and protecting the kids. But you could go to court and be told that your kids have got to have access to this abusive dad. And your children have witnessed the abuse. So my youngest has never witnessed abuse. You can tell just from her characteristics, how she is, how amazing she is, bubbly she is. My son, we've had issues. And my eldest, she struggles a lot. But she won't tell you she's struggling. So she's in therapy, trying to deal with the rejection of not seeing her dad, because it's like she's being rejected by her father, but also the fact that she's got her own things to deal with. He would beat me in the room next door and then go and play Disney Dad with her and buy her whatever she wanted. Oh, do you want this? Do you want that? So I think for her, coming to terms with all of that, it's a bit hard. But we've never been happier now. 3 years since I've left, as hard as it is, it's actually a lot peaceful and less stress.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was a long story. And yeah, I kept quiet for that whole ep, really. I just wanted to make a highlight or to point out, like, what would you say are key signs, like maybe 3 or 4 key signs that women should look out for in controlling or domestically abusive relationships? Like, what are the main flags for you that kind of pop and like you need to kind of
especially
look out
like
for that?
in the early stages?
Yeah.
What would you
Love
say?
bombing being one of them. Men, generally abusive men will always love bomb you at the beginning. So that initial honeymoon stage. This is where it gets blurry because you think it's the honeymoon stage. That's why he loves me so much. But actually, if they're telling you too much, they love you, they want to be with you all the time, where they don't let you have your life, your own life. You're your own person. You've got a life before you met them. They make you feel guilty for spending time with your family. So love bombing. The whole control element. Let me check your phone. Who you chatting to? Where you going? These are all red flags for me. So like, if I was to ever go into another relationship, no man could ask me where I'm going. Obviously, if I'm in a respectful relationship, you divulge that information anyway,
Normal,
right?
like,
Normal.
just
Go in here, I'll be back in an hour. But to be told you have to, that's a problem. Major problem. And obviously, if they put their hand on you, which they very rarely do initially, by the way, if the coercion and the love bombing and the control element work on you, they don't need to lift a finger on you because you conform. And a lot of women are in those kind of relationships where they don't believe they're in an abusive relationship because they've never had a black eye or they've never been physically assaulted. They'll just say, I'm not in an abusive relationship. And then you look at all the other elements of it. They can't go to the shop on their own. Their phone's monitored. They've got trackers on their car. They can't move on their own.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What do you think needs to change in? I know it's like $1 million question, but like with policing, with social care, can you give us a couple for both? So with policing, what do you think needs to change in that aspect of like how they react and respond to survivors of domestic abuse or ones that are currently in that situation when it's hot?
So with the police first, if your case is that high risk, it gets heard at Marek. Once your risk assessment gets done, if you score I think it's over 15, you get heard at Marek, which you've got all these agencies sitting out around a table. You would think having all these agencies that are actually set up to help you all around the table at the same time coming to agree to a plan they could stick to and they'd follow through with it. But actually, marriage doesn't work because you're not really doing anything off the back of that.
I think it's I've got different experience of Marek because I used to be a rep for children's social care in Marek in a local authority that I used to work for. And this chair, Marek, was on it. So everyone was so accountable to this person because the person who chaired it was on it and was like, yep, okay, cool, I'm writing this email. Because everything had to be done to make sure that person, that family was safe. So I can only assume in different local authorities, different areas, they must react and respond differently. You're going to get different chairs. Same way you get good social workers, get bad social workers. I think it would be probably the same sort of thing. But in my experience, not as a person who's received support from the Marek, but being a professional in it, I have experienced it before when I've been like, wow, this is actually really good because this chair's making sure people are really accountable.
I think it all becomes a bit overwhelming. So they talk about you in Marek, but you're not really privy to the information they're sharing about you in that Marek unless you have an IDVA. Then they want you to talk to someone. I personally didn't want an IDVA. I was like, why am I telling my story to someone I don't even know? I can help myself. I can do X, Y, Z. Because really all they do is hold your hand. They don't really offer any type of support other than, do you want us to come to court with you? Or do you want us... I mean, like, for me, my experience was that they didn't really help me. I would say they need training. Frontline officers need training on how to respond to victims or survivors of domestic abuse. So in my case, most recently, it was non-violent. So I'm calling the police. It's all stalking and harassment. And they're looking at you like, you're wasting our time. But you're actually, if it wasn't for me knowing statistics, knowing actually how dangerous it is for me, leaving and having my ex-partner still be highly obsessed with me 3 years after I've left, I needed to keep making the police aware of actually how dangerous my life's in danger. I can't function, I can't move, I wasn't sleeping. But it was me literally phoning the police all the time. By the way, can you do this? So I would say frontline training for police officers to understand non-violent DV. So stalking, harassment, coercive control, which are all covered under the new domestic abuse bill, by the way. So really, they should have been trained on it. For social workers, I would say with children's services, I mean, I laugh about this, right? But I wanted them to stay involved with me on, like, most recently, because I was like, you guys are actually washing your hands up because I've protected my kids. I've done everything to protect my children. But actually, you guys ain't staying involved. You guys ain't really helping me follow through with it. You're just phoning me to do mash checks. And you're like, is that it? Do your mash checks. Like, but I would have wanted more support. I would have wanted them to understand the effect it was having on my mental health, because I think if I didn't have you guys at work and the extra support I'd seeked outside that were constantly saying to me, you're not going mad. This is post-separational abuse. What he's doing to you is he's trying to make you feel like you're going mad. So it's all very subtle, it's not violent, it's not threatening, but it's enough to make you know that they're not going away. And you're just, when you've experienced the physical violence from someone and 3 years later they're still there badgering away under the premise that, oh, it's about the kids, when it's not really about your kids. I think it'd be nice for children's services to be a bit more involved and help the parent to follow through a bit more, so they can help with any letters of support that need to be written to the courts or to anybody, other professional that's involved with you would be great. And it would be great if the courts would stop changing non-molestation orders into civil orders that aren't worth the paper they're written on, because they don't protect women and children at all. And that's what the court system's doing. They'll grant non-molestation orders with powers of arrest and make them into a civil order of an undertaking with no powers of arrest. So you're not protecting women, you're not protecting the children these orders are covered under. If I could, I'd like to train the judges and police officers to understand the impact, their decision, the impact it has on us. And I don't think they do.
So insightful, so impactful. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your experiences. Like, you've been through a lot.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, but just enough. And it's lovely to have you here in the flesh, like literally being able to support other women, share what to do, share your knowledge, and just educating people as well. So thank you so much. It's been a massive privilege. Yeah, honestly. Guys, I don't know if are you on social media at all, or
No.
no, that's fine. But is there any kind of like services that you do have a positive like repertoire with that you can kind of like plug, like if there are women out there or mothers who are experiencing domestic abuse, violence, who they could like contact?
Sure. I worked, for me to get over the abuse, and I'm still a work in progress, I worked with a domestic abuse charity called Future Living. They have a fantastic course that they offer called the Monica Program. But you can only do it if you've left your abusive relationship. So they will not work with you if you are still in the relationship. And the reason the course works is you go to these weekly sessions for 10 weeks, 12 weeks, but you get weekly therapy. So all these information comes out in these group sessions that you can really unpick and contain in your therapy sessions. That's why it works. They're very supportive, and the course is great. I mean, I would actively say to everybody who has recently left or is planning on leaving, contact Future Living, because they're the only ones that do the Monica program.
Mm-hmm.
It was written by them. It's accredited by University of Hertfordshire. It's a brilliant program. It really helps. It makes you understand abuse. It makes you understand how to repair yourself after and not let the abuse define you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. We're Mama Drama Podcast. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you like this video. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss another one. And if you're listening, rate us 5 stars where possible. We are out. Bye.